She said he's just a friend until I saw his hoodie in our laundry. At the beginning, everything between us felt effortless, almost cinematic. She was warm, affectionate, and carried a calm energy that made every ordinary day feel meaningful. We spent evenings laughing over the smallest things, cooking together, planning road trips that we never finished listing because we were too busy enjoying each other's company. I truly believed I had found the woman who made life make sense. Our apartment was full of music and quiet joy. I trusted her completely. Then one afternoon, she mentioned someone named Eli. She said he was a friend from college, a good guy who always made her laugh. I nodded and smiled because I wanted to be the kind of man who didn't question things. But that name started slipping into more and more conversations. At first, it was a casual mention, then it became part of her daily rhythm. She would say she had lunch with him or that he helped her pick something out for work. Each time, I felt a small sting of discomfort that I buried under layers of logic and faith in her. Soon, their connection became impossible to ignore. Friday nights that used to be ours suddenly became her nights out. She said they were just catching up, that I didn't have to come because it was more of a nostalgia thing. When I suggested meeting him, she brushed it off, saying he was too shy or busy. She started dressing differently on those nights. More effort, more perfume, more excitement. She would come home late, smiling at nothing in particular, her phone lighting up with notifications that she checked when she thought I wasn't watching. One evening she came home after midnight, hair damp, cheeks flushed, and wearing a gray hoodie that was too big to be hers or mine. I remember asking why she was wet, and she told me it rained. There had been no rain that night, but I didn't argue. Instead, I smiled, kissed her forehead, and said I was glad she was home safe. My stomach was in knots, but I convinced myself that doubt would only destroy what we had. I wanted to believe love was stronger than suspicion. The following days felt different. She became distant, her laughter softer, her gaze less direct. I would wake up to find her already on her phone, texting with her back turned to me. When I asked who it was, she said work, and I nodded even though the screen showed a heart emoji before she locked it. Our shared playlists changed too. The songs we used to love disappeared, replaced by new ones I didn't recognize, songs she said Eli recommended. Even her scent changed, new perfume, subtle but different, a small detail that told a bigger story. I tried to recreate what we had. I planned a surprise dinner, her favorite meal, candles, and music. She smiled politely, but her eyes stayed on her phone more than on me. When I reached across the table to hold her hand, she pulled away to answer a message. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I started realizing love cannot survive on trust alone when one person stops honoring it. That night, as she fell asleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The room felt cold, silent, almost foreign. I replayed every moment in my head, every excuse, every late return, every nervous smile. It was all there, hiding in plain sight. I wanted to ask her the truth, but part of me already knew it. I just wasn't ready to hear it yet. The days that followed felt heavier, as if silence had started filling the spaces where laughter once lived. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Every relationship goes through quiet phases, right? But this quiet wasn't peace. It was distance, slow and deliberate, like she was building a wall between us one small secret at a time. Her phone became her new best friend. It was always in her hand, screen facing away from me. She changed her password, then pretended she hadn't. Notifications stopped making sounds, and whenever I entered the room, she would swipe up and lock the screen with a calmness that looked practiced. I tried to convince myself that maybe she needed privacy, maybe she was just tired, maybe the long work hours were getting to her. But my gut told me something else. There was a pattern forming, and it was getting harder to ignore. She started going out more often, sometimes saying she was running errands, other times claiming she was meeting a coworker. The first time, I offered to come along. She smiled in that polite way that meant no. Then it became a routine. I would come home to find her gone, a note on the table, or a vague text that said she'd be back late. I waited up the first few times, pretending to watch TV while the clock dragged its feet toward midnight. When she came in, she always looked freshly showered, hair damp, smelling of new perfume. A fragrance I had never smelled on her before, something musky and expensive. I asked about it once. She said she got a sample from work. I nodded and told her it smelled nice, even though it made my chest tighten every time it lingered on the pillow beside me. The affection started fading in small, painful increments. She used to greet me with a hug the moment I walked in. Now, it was a distracted wave from the couch, her eyes glued to her screen. Our conversations shrank to one-word replies. How was your day became fine. Do you want dinner became whatever. I love you turned into a quiet hum, she mumbled without looking up. I could feel the weight of her detachment pressing against me every night. There was one evening that still plays in my head. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I caught a glimpse of her reflection in the mirror. She was texting, smiling softly, her thumb hesitating before sending the message. A light blush rose on her cheeks. I asked who it was. She looked at me, still smiling, and said it was just Eli. Then came that word that would haunt me for months. Relax. She said it like a command, like I was the problem for noticing the shift. That word became her shield for everything. Whenever I asked why she was distant, she said relax. When she stayed out late, relax. When her phone buzzed after midnight, relax. It wasn't reassurance anymore. It was a dismissal, a quiet way of telling me to stop asking questions. I started doubting myself, wondering if I had become paranoid. But every time I tried to let go of the suspicion, another small inconsistency appeared. She started dressing differently too. Even for quick grocery runs, she wore lipstick and heels. She spent extra time in front of the mirror, checking herself from every angle before leaving. When I asked where she was going, she'd say nowhere important. I noticed the new jewelry, the new clothes, all arriving without explanation. She said her boss gave her a bonus, but her pay slip said otherwise. I tried to reconnect. I planned a surprise dinner, made her favorite pasta, set the table with candles. She walked in, looked at everything, and smiled weakly. She said she was too tired to eat and went straight to bed. I sat there staring at the untouched food, realizing I was the only one still trying. The emotional distance became physical. She stopped touching me, stopped seeking comfort. Even her goodnight kisses turned into air between us. I would lie awake, listening to the sound of her phone vibrating quietly under the pillow. One night, curiosity won over fear. I waited until she was asleep and looked at the screen. The message preview read, "I miss your laugh already." My chest went cold. I didn't open the chat. I just turned off the light and lay in the dark, pretending not to know what I had seen. The following morning, she acted normal, humming while making coffee, wearing the same perfume that wasn't hers. I watched her leave for work, her phone clutched tightly in her hand, smiling at a message before stepping out. I realized then that love doesn't disappear overnight. It fades in the details and the silences, the locked screens, the new scents, and the word relax whispered just to quiet your instincts. That day, I promised myself something. I wouldn't accuse her without proof, but I wouldn't ignore the truth anymore. Because sometimes, silence speaks louder than confession, and the signs were screaming right in front of me. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind of morning that usually felt peaceful. Sunlight came through the curtains, soft and gold, while the sound of running water echoed from the bathroom. She was in the shower, humming a song I did not recognize. I decided to do the laundry. It was something I often did for both of us, part of the small routines that once made our life feel easy. The basket was full of clothes from the week, and I started sorting them one by one, folding as I went. Then, buried under a pile of jeans and shirts, I found something that did not belong to me. It was a gray hoodie, oversized, heavier than her usual clothes. The moment I lifted it, a wave of scent hit me. It was faint, but unmistakable, a mix of masculine cologne and her shampoo. A combination too intimate to be innocent. My heart began to race. I turned it over in my hands, trying to find something that would explain it, something that would prove I was wrong. But there, on the inside tag, printed neatly in black, were two words that shattered me. Eli M. My stomach twisted. The name looked almost ordinary, but to me, it burned. My hands went cold as I held it. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen between disbelief and certainty. The house felt different. The air heavier. I placed the hoodie neatly on her side of the bed, right where she could see it the moment she walked out. Then I sat on the edge of the mattress, waiting. I wanted to believe there was another explanation. Maybe he lent it to her in the rain. Maybe I was wrong about everything. But deep down, I already knew. The bathroom door opened, and steam filled the room. She came out wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping down her shoulders. The moment she saw the hoodie, her smile vanished. Her face drained of color, and for a split second, she froze completely. I watched her eyes flicker between me and the hoodie like she was calculating how to lie before her mouth even opened. "Oh, that," she said after a long pause, forcing a small laugh. "He forgot it in my car. I washed it for him." Her voice was calm, maybe too calm, like she had rehearsed that excuse. I waited for more, for something that would make sense. Nothing came. She just stood there, pretending it was no big deal. My heart cracked at how easily the lie slipped out. I smiled, or at least I think I did. I told her that was thoughtful, that it was kind of her to wash a friend's hoodie. My voice sounded far away, detached, like it belonged to someone else. She smiled back, relieved, thinking she had convinced me. She tossed the hoodie into the laundry basket again and changed the subject, asking if I wanted breakfast. I said yes, even though my appetite was gone. That night, she fell asleep easily beside me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The rhythm of her breathing should have comforted me, but instead it made me feel hollow. The space between us felt like miles. I thought about the hoodie again, the scent, the name, the way she froze when she saw it. Every detail played in my head on a loop. I wondered how long it had been happening, how long she had been pretending. Around midnight, I got out of bed and went to the living room. The apartment felt cold and unfamiliar, like someone else's home. I sat on the couch, watching the shadows stretch across the walls. I kept trying to tell myself that it was only a misunderstanding, that maybe she was telling the truth. But my mind wouldn't stop replaying her expression, that flicker of fear when she realized she had been caught. When morning came, she acted normal, as if nothing had happened. She made coffee, played music, asked about my plans for the day. I answered softly, pretending to go along. I watched her move around the kitchen, smiling and humming, and I wondered if she even realized how far she had drifted from me. I went back to the bedroom and looked at the bed, the spot where I had placed the hoodie. It was gone. She must have hidden it somewhere before I woke up. That simple act told me everything I needed to know. It was no longer about evidence or proof. It was about the quiet truth sitting between us, invisible but undeniable. That night, I lay awake again, listening to the sound of her breathing, the hum of her phone lighting up in the dark. I didn't reach for it. I didn't ask questions. I just stared at the ceiling until sunrise, realizing that the woman sleeping beside me was no longer the person I had fallen in love with. The body was there, but the soul was already gone. The morning after the discovery felt strange, like the world had lost its sound. She was cheerful again, pretending the tension from the night before had never happened. She brewed coffee, tied her hair up, and said she was going out for coffee with Eli. That name stung now, every syllable like a thorn. I nodded without looking at her, pretending to be busy with something on my phone. The moment the door clicked shut behind her, the silence became suffocating. I sat for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to decide whether to keep pretending or face what I already knew. The laptop was on the kitchen table, screen open, half asleep. I told myself I would not look, but curiosity, or maybe self-respect, took over. My fingers trembled as I pressed the spacebar. The screen woke up, and there it was. No passwords, no effort to hide anything. The messages sat there in plain sight, glowing with the casual cruelty of truth. I scrolled slowly, each word slicing deeper. Last night was amazing. I miss your scent. Wish you were here right now. The timestamps told their own story. While I was waiting for her to come home from her supposed errands, she had been somewhere else, sharing pieces of herself that used to belong to me. For a moment, I felt everything at once. Anger, heartbreak, humiliation, disbelief. Then, just quiet. A kind of peace that only comes when you finally stop denying what is right in front of you. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood up, walked to the bedroom, and pulled out my suitcase. The sound of the zipper filled the room, steady and final. I folded my clothes one by one, methodically, as if keeping busy could stop my thoughts from spiraling. When I reached the dresser, I saw the gray hoodie again, now washed and folded neatly. It sat there like a symbol of everything I had lost. I picked it up, smelled it one last time, and felt that same ache in my chest. Then I placed it carefully on her side of the bed. I didn't want to destroy anything, didn't want revenge. I just wanted to leave behind the proof of her betrayal and my goodbye all in one gesture. I took a piece of paper, wrote 6 simple words, and left it beside the hoodie. He can keep his hoodie, and you. I looked around the apartment before leaving. Every corner carried a memory. The couch where we used to fall asleep watching movies. The small kitchen where we danced while cooking. The balcony where she once said she could never imagine life without me. All of it felt like a lie now. I turned off the lights, closed the door, and walked away without looking back. The hallway felt endless, but with each step, the weight on my chest began to lift. I drove for hours with no destination in mind, just letting the road guide me. I checked into a small hotel near the coast that night, watched the waves crash against the rocks, and realized I didn't feel broken anymore. Just emptied out, like someone who had finally run out of tears. I slept better that night than I had in months. Weeks passed. I moved into a new apartment across town, smaller but quiet, free of ghosts. I focused on rebuilding piece by piece. Work, gym, sleep, repeat. The ache dulled over time, replaced by something steadier, clarity. I learned that peace doesn't always come from closure. Sometimes it comes from choosing not to reopen what already destroyed you. Months later, she reached out. A message appeared out of nowhere. I made a mistake, it said. I miss you. I stared at it for a while before closing the chat. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. She had gambled everything for excitement and lost something she couldn't buy back. One afternoon, I saw her again. It was by accident, on a busy street downtown. She was standing near a cafe, holding her phone, wearing that same gray hoodie. The sight of it almost made me laugh. It looked worn now, faded, like it had been through too many washes. She looked smaller too, her eyes tired, her smile forced as she talked to someone on the phone. For a brief moment, she looked up and our eyes met. She froze, caught between recognition and regret. I gave her a polite nod and kept walking. No anger, no bitterness, just calm. I could feel her eyes following me as I disappeared into the crowd, but I didn't turn around. There was nothing to fix, nothing to recover. That night, I sat by my window, watching the city lights. For the first time in a long while, I felt light again. I realized that goodbye isn't always about walking away in pain. Sometimes it's about choosing peace over chaos, silence over explanations. And as strange as it sounds, that silence said everything she never could.